Rain lashed against the small window of my apartment above the garage, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. 30 years. 30 years I'd poured my life into this family, helping Marcus and Jennifer raise their children, managing the household, even contributing financially when times were tough. And now this. Mom, Marcus had said, his voice strained. Jennifer, and I need a little more privacy. Jennifer stood beside him, twisting the strap of her purse, avoiding my gaze. It's just with the kids getting older, she added, her voice thin. I knew what they were really saying. They wanted me gone. Privacy, I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. After all this time, the air in the small apartment suddenly felt thick, suffocating. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. We appreciate everything you've done, Mom, she said quickly, but we really need the space. Marcus nodded, his eyes pleading with me to understand, to make this easy for them. We'll help you find a nice little place, he offered, somewhere closer to town. A nice little place. The words stung. My contributions, my sacrifices, reduced to the need for a nice little place. I'd given up my own career to help them, pouring my meager savings into their family, into this house. Now, they were essentially evicting me. I looked around the cramped apartment, at the mismatched furniture, the worn rug. This wasn't even a proper home, just a converted space above their garage, a testament to my willingness to accommodate their growing family. I understand, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. The shock had numbed me, creating a strange sense of detachment. We were thinking you could move in with Aunt Millie, Marcus suggested, clearly relieved that I wasn't making a scene. The thought of living with my eccentric Aunt Millie crammed into her tiny, cluttered apartment sent a shiver down my spine. Or Jennifer chimed in, her voice a little too bright. There's that lovely assisted living facility downtown. They have bingo nights, as if I were some doddering old woman needing to be entertained. I was barely 65. Still active and independent. I'll consider my options, I said. My voice clipped. I wanted them gone. I needed to be alone with the raw, stinging humiliation they'd inflicted. Marcus reached out to hug me, but I flinched away. I need some time, I said, my voice trembling slightly. They exchanged a look. A mixture of relief and apprehension. Then they turned and left, closing the door behind them, leaving me alone in the silence of the small, rain-lashed apartment. I stood there for a long time, the rain drumming a steady rhythm against the window pane. My mind raced, trying to process the enormity of what had just happened. Where would I go? What would I do? My savings were almost depleted after years of contributing to their household expenses. I had no real career to fall back on, no plan, no future. The lump in my throat tightened, threatening to choke me. I sank onto the worn sofa, the springs groaning beneath me, and stared out at the rain. Suddenly, a memory flickered in my mind. A memory of my grandmother, her eyes twinkling mischievously as she handed me a small, sealed envelope just weeks before she passed away. Don't open this until you absolutely need it, she'd instructed. It's for emergencies only. I'd tucked the envelope away in a safe place and forgotten about it. Until now, with trembling hands, I retrieved the envelope from its hiding place. The paper was yellowed with age, ink faded, Inside, nestled amongst tissue paper, was a key and a folded document. The key looked old, ornate, unlike any key I'd ever seen. The document, a letter from my grandmother, explained everything. It detailed a secret inheritance, a trust fund she'd established years ago. Unbeknownst to anyone in the family, a trust fund worth $3 million. $3 million. The number swam in my head. It couldn't be real. It felt like a dream, a fantastical escape from the bleak reality of my situation. I read the letter again slowly, carefully, absorbing every word. The money was real. The key, my grandmother explained, was to a safety deposit box in a bank in Paris, containing the details of the trust and instructions on how to access the funds. Paris, the city of lights, of romance, of new beginnings. A slow smile spread across my face. The numbness began to recede, replaced by a surge of something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The rain continued to fall, but the sound no longer seemed mournful. Now, it sounded like a gentle applause, a celebration of this unexpected turn of events. I looked around the small, cramped apartment, at the worn furniture, the peeling paint. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning, a new chapter, and I knew exactly how I was going to write it. I closed my eyes, imagining the possibilities. Paris, a new life, a life where I could finally be free, and perhaps, just perhaps, a life where I could show Marcus and Jennifer what they'd thrown away. Rain lashed against the kitchen window, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. Jennifer, perched on a stool at the counter, meticulously chopped vegetables with a sharpness that echoed in her voice. Catherine, we've been talking, and honestly, we think it's time you considered other living arrangements. My breath hitched. Other arrangements. I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. She paused, the knife poised midair. Yes, it's not that we don't appreciate everything you've done, she said smoothly, placing the knife down with a decisive tap. But the girls are getting older, and you're being here well. It's making them too reliant on you. I stared at her, the words hanging heavy in the air. Reliant. I had poured 30 years of my life into this family, raising Marcus after his father passed, supporting them through thick and thin. And this was my reward. Reliant, I echoed again, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. Jennifer sighed, a practiced sound of long-suffering patience. Yes, they need to learn to be more independent, cook their own meals, do their own laundry. She gestured vaguely towards the laundry room, where I'd just finished folding a mountain of their clothes. It's for their own good, really. The rain intensified, the drumming against the glass a relentless rhythm against the silence that stretched between us. Marcus chose that moment to walk in, his face a carefully neutral mask. He didn't meet my eyes. Jennifer's right, Mom, he mumbled, grabbing a banana from the fruit bowl. It's time. You understand. Don't you understand? I understood perfectly. They wanted me gone. After all these years of selfless devotion, of putting their needs before my own, they were discarding me like yesterday's newspaper. A lump formed in my throat, choking off the words I wanted to scream. Of course, I managed, my voice brittle. I'll start packing. I retreated to my small room, the one tucked away at the back of the house, the one that had become progressively smaller over the years As their family expanded, the walls seemed to close in on me, the floral wallpaper suddenly suffocating. 30 years. 30 years I had given them, and this was how it ended. In a cramped room, with the rain pounding outside, and the unspoken words echoing in my ears. "You're not wanted here." I pulled out a dusty suitcase from under the bed, its worn leather a testament to years of travel that had always been about them, never about me. School trips, family vacations, even that time Jennifer wanted to find herself in Bali. I'd facilitated it all, happily, willingly, without a thought for myself. And now, where was I supposed to go? I had a meager savings account, barely enough to cover a few months' rent in a tiny apartment. The thought filled me with a chilling dread. My hand brushed against a small, wooden box tucked away in the corner of the suitcase. It was my mother's, a keepsake I'd treasured for years. Inside, nestled among old photographs and trinkets, was a sealed envelope. My mother had given it to me years ago, with strict instructions not to open it until I was truly in need. Truly in need, she had said, her eyes twinkling, or when you're ready for an adventure. An adventure. The word resonated in the hollow space of my heart. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper, folded neatly, contained words that sent a jolt of electricity through me. It was a lawyer's letter, informing me of an inheritance. A substantial inheritance. $3 million. From a distant and I barely remembered. $3 million. The number swam before my eyes. It was more money than I'd ever dreamed of. Suddenly, the cramped room didn't feel so small anymore. The rain outside didn't sound so dreary. A strange calmness settled over me, replacing the fear and despair with a quiet resolve. They wanted me gone. Fine, I would go. But I wouldn't be disappearing into some dingy apartment, scrambling to make ends meet. I would be leaving on my own terms. I closed my eyes, picturing a sleek, modern apartment overlooking the Seine, the Eiffel Tower shimmering in the distance, the scent of freshly baked croissants wafting in from a nearby bakery. Paris. I had always dreamed of Paris. A small smile played on my lips. Perhaps, after all these years, it was time for an adventure. My adventure. And they wouldn't be a part of it. Not this time. The thought filled me with a sense of satisfaction I hadn't realized I craved. It wasn't revenge. Not exactly. It was something more empowering. A reclaiming of my life, my future. I continued packing, a new sense of purpose fueling my movements. I would leave quietly, without a fuss. Let them think they had won. Let them think they had pushed me out into the cold. They had no idea what was waiting for me. They had no idea what I was capable of. The lukewarm tea sat heavy in my stomach, much like the silence in the kitchen. "Mom," Marcus began, avoiding my eyes, fiddling with the sugar bowl. "Jennifer and I have been talking," he trailed off, then blurted. "It's just it would be better for everyone if you found your own place." My hand trembled as I set the chipped mug on the worn Formica tabletop. 30 years. 30 years I'd lived in this house, raised him in this house, supported them in this house. And now this. "What are you saying, Marcus?" My voice was barely a whisper. He finally looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite decipher. Guilt? Resentment? "We need our space, Mom. We need our privacy." Jennifer entered the kitchen then, her perfectly manicured fingers reaching for Marcus's hand. "Marcus, honey," the plumber called about the leaky faucet upstairs. Her voice, like always, was laced with a sweetness that felt cloying. She didn't even glance my way. The leaky faucet, the one I'd reminded Marcus about for weeks. Now it was suddenly urgent. "I'll call him back," Marcus said, his hand gripping Jennifer's tightly. The image felt like a slap. "Mom, we can talk about this later." "Okay." He didn't wait for my response. They just left, their linked hands disappearing through the doorway, leaving me alone in the echoing silence of the kitchen. I stared at the faded floral wallpaper, a relic from a time when this house was filled with laughter, with birthday parties and holiday gatherings. Now those memories felt like ghosts, taunting me with what I'd lost, or perhaps what I'd never truly had. I ran a hand over the smooth, cool surface of the table. This table, I'd refinished it myself years ago when Marcus was still a little boy, fascinated by the swirling patterns of the wood grain. He'd sat here, perched on a phone book, helping me sand the rough edges. Now, he was pushing me out, erasing me from the picture he was painting of his perfect life with Jennifer. A wave of nausea washed over me. Where would I go? My meager savings wouldn't last long. I'd poured everything into this house, into a life that was no longer mine. Later, Marcus returned, alone this time. He sat across from me, the same chair he'd used as a child, his legs now too long for the space beneath the table. "Mom," he started, his voice gentler now, but the words were still sharp. "We appreciate everything you've done. We really do. But things change." He reached across the table, placing his hand over mine. His touch felt foreign, awkward. "We want to start a family, Mom. We need this house. We need," he paused, then finished lamely, "a fresh start. A fresh start. Without me." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "So, what are you suggesting, Marcus?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. He looked relieved. "We were thinking you could maybe downsize. There are some lovely retirement communities around. We can help you find a place." Retirement communities. The thought sent a chill down my spine. Was this it? Was this how my story ended? Shuffled off to some sterile, beige-walled room, surrounded by strangers. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw not the boy I'd raised, but a stranger, molded and shaped by the woman who now held his heart, his life, in her perfectly manicured hands. "I understand," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. He seemed surprised by my calm acceptance. He didn't know. He didn't know about the letter, tucked away in my jewelry box, the letter that changed everything. The letter from my Aunt Millie, the aunt I'd barely known, the aunt who'd left me a fortune, $3 million, a secret I'd kept, a lifeline I'd clung to, hoping I'd never need it. Now, it was my escape route, my ticket to a future they couldn't control. "When do you want me to leave?" I asked, my gaze steady on his. He shifted uncomfortably. "We were thinking maybe the end of the month." He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "The end of the month is fine," I replied, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. He didn't see it. He was too busy planning his fresh start, too busy erasing me from the picture. He had no idea what was coming. He had no idea that my fresh start was about to begin, and it would be far more spectacular than anything he could ever imagine. He had no idea about Paris. Rain lashed against the kitchen window, blurring the familiar garden into an impressionist smear of green and gray. I stared out at it, clutching a mug of lukewarm tea, the warmth doing little to thaw the chill that had settled deep in my bones. How could they do this to me? I whispered, the question hanging unanswered in the quiet kitchen. 30 years. 30 years I'd poured into this family, into this house. From the moment Marcus was born, my life had revolved around making a home for him, supporting him, loving him unconditionally. And Jennifer, when she came along, I embraced her as my own. I'd welcomed her, supported their marriage, even helped with the down payment on this house. And now they wanted their privacy. They'd asked me, as politely as they could manage, to leave. I wandered over to the counter, picking up a stray crumb of toast and rolling it between my fingers. The kitchen, normally bustling with activity, felt eerily still. The faint aroma of coffee lingered, a ghostly reminder of mornings past, of breakfast shared, of laughter echoing off these very walls. Now, silence pressed in on me, heavy and suffocating. Where did I go wrong? I murmured, the words barely audible above the drumming of the rain. Had I been too present, too involved? Had my love, my dedication somehow become a burden? The thought stung, a sharp, unexpected jab of pain. The kettle clicked off, the sudden noise startling me. I jumped slightly, then reached out with trembling hands to refill my mug. The steam rose, momentarily obscuring my reflection in the window. When it cleared, I saw a woman I barely recognized. Her shoulders were slumped, her eyes shadowed with a weariness that went deeper than lack of sleep. "This isn't me," I whispered, my voice cracking. "This can't be how my story ends." A flicker of defiance, small but insistent, ignited within me. I straightened my shoulders, took a deep breath, and consciously unclenched my jaw. I wouldn't let them see me broken. I wouldn't let them win. I had spent my life taking care of others, putting their needs before my own. Now, it was time to take care of myself. For the first time in a long time, I felt a stirring of resolve, a sense of purpose that had nothing to do with anyone else. I walked over to the calendar hanging by the back door, its squares filled with scribbled reminders and appointments. Birthdays, anniversaries, school events, all meticulously noted, all evidence of my role as the family's anchor, its memory keeper. I ran my fingers over the dates, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. "They won't need me for this anymore," I said aloud, the sound of my voice surprisingly steady. "They've made that perfectly clear." The rain continued to fall, the sound a constant backdrop to my swirling thoughts. I paced the length of the kitchen, trying to process the enormity of the change that lay ahead. Where would I go? What would I do? I had a small nest egg, enough for a modest apartment, a simple life, but it wouldn't be the life I had envisioned, the life I had worked so hard to build, the life I had believed, foolishly, would be my reward for years of selfless devotion. A sudden thought pierced through the fog of despair. My Aunt Clara, her passing, the hushed phone call from the solicitor I'd almost forgotten. She'd always been fond of me, more like a second mother than an aunt. "I've left you something," she'd said, her voice weak but clear. Just weeks before she died. Something to ensure you're always taken care of. At the time, I'd been so preoccupied with Marcus and his family that I hadn't given it much thought. Just a small bequest, I'd assumed, a token of her affection. I hadn't even bothered to follow up with the solicitor. I pulled open a drawer, rummaging through a jumble of pens, receipts, and take-out menus until my fingers closed on a small, cream-colored envelope. The solicitor's name and address were printed in the top left corner. Inside, a single sheet of paper unfolded to reveal a figure that made my breath catch in my throat. $3 million. Aunt Clara had left me $3 million. The room seemed to tilt, the rain outside intensifying into a roar. $3 million. It was an unimaginable sum, a life-altering amount. A slow smile spread across my face, chasing away the shadows that had lingered there for days. The chill that had settled in my bones began to melt away, replaced by a warmth that radiated outwards, filling me with a newfound sense of power. "They want their privacy," I whispered, my voice now laced with a hint of steel. "Well, they'll have it, and I'll have mine." The rain continued to fall, washing away the last vestiges of my despair, leaving in its wake a quiet, steely resolve, the kind of resolve that comes from knowing you hold all the cards. The crisp Persian air swirled through the open balcony doors, carrying the scent of freshly baked bread and blooming lilacs. I took a deep breath, letting the beauty of the city wash over me, a stark contrast to the cramped, cluttered house I'd just left behind. "Another espresso, Madame Dubois," the concierge, Antoine, asked, his voice a soothing balm. "Yes, please, Antoine," I replied, a small smile playing on my lips. It was still strange to hear my name attached to such elegance, to feel the smooth marble beneath my feet instead of the worn, threadbare carpets of my son's house. "It's breathtaking, isn't it?" I murmured, gazing at the Eiffel Tower shimmering in the distance. "Indeed, Madame Dubois. A view fit for royalty," Antoine agreed, handing me the delicate porcelain cup. "Royalty," I echoed softly, the word tasting foreign yet strangely fitting. Just a few weeks ago, I was being treated more like a servant than royalty. "Mom, we need our space," Marcus had mumbled, avoiding my eyes. Jennifer, of course, had been more direct. "This house is too small for all of us," she declared, her arms crossed tightly. "It's for the best." The memory stung, but I pushed it away, focusing instead on the exquisite details of my new apartment. High ceilings, ornate moldings, gleaming hardwood floorset was everything I'd ever dreamed of, and it was all mine. The lawyer's words still echoed in my ears. "Your Aunt Mathilde left you her entire estate, Mrs. Dubois. A considerable sum, indeed. $3 million. A secret she'd kept close to her heart, a secret that had now become my lifeline. I'll have some macarons sent up, Madame Dubois, raspberry and pistachio, your favorites." "Yes," Antoine's voice interrupted my thoughts. "That would be lovely, Antoine. Thank you," I replied, sinking back into the plush velvet armchair. I sipped my espresso, the warmth spreading through me, a pleasant contrast to the icy chill Jennifer's words had left behind. I opened the laptop on the small table beside me, the screen illuminating my face. The real estate agent's website was still open, displaying the pictures of the apartment I'd just purchased. It had been a whirlwind few days, flying to Paris, viewing properties, signing papers. But with every signature, every transaction, I felt a growing sense of empowerment. I wasn't just buying an apartment. I was buying my freedom, my independence. I ran my fingers over the cool metal of the laptop, a small, satisfied smile playing on my lips. Jennifer had wanted me out of the house. She'd wanted me gone. Well, she got her wish. I was gone to a place far more luxurious than anything she could have imagined. A place where I could finally live my life on my own terms, without the constant criticism and subtle jabs, without the feeling of being a burden, an unwanted guest in my own son's home. I closed the laptop. The image of the apartment burned into my mind. It wasn't just about the apartment itself. It was about the symbolism. It was about taking control, about showing them that I wasn't helpless, that I wouldn't be discarded so easily. The macarons arrived, delicate pastel jewels nestled in a silver box. I took one, savoring the sweet, tangy flavor, the delicate crunch of the shell. This, I thought, is what freedom tastes like. Antoine, I called, my voice filled with a newfound confidence. Could you arrange for a photographer to come tomorrow? I want to take some pictures of the apartment. Certainly, Madame Dubois. What time would be convenient? He asked. Mid-morning would be perfect, I replied, already picturing the framed photos adorning my walls. Photos not just of the apartment, but of the view, the city, the life I was building for myself. A life they had tried to take away from me, but a life I had reclaimed, stronger and more vibrant than ever before. I picked up my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found Marcus's number. My finger hovered over the call button, hesitation momentarily clouding my resolve. But then I remembered Jennifer's smug face, her dismissive tone. The hesitation vanished, replaced by a steely determination. I wasn't going to call, not yet. I had something better in mind, something that would speak louder than any words I could say. I opened the camera app, framing the Eiffel Tower in the distance, the opulent furnishings of my apartment in the foreground, a perfect picture. A perfect symbol of my newfound freedom. I attached the photo to a message, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Enjoying the view from my new apartment, I typed, adding a single, potent emoji, a sparkling diamond. I hit send, a wave of satisfaction washing over me. The game, I realized, had just begun. The Parisian air, crisp and carrying the faint scent of pastries, felt like a new beginning. After Jennifer's pointed words, "We need our privacy, Mother. It's time you found your own place," I had felt adrift, lost. But now, standing in this airy, sun-drenched apartment overlooking the Seine, a different emotion stirred within me. Resolve. Madame Dubois, the realtor, a chic woman with a warm smile, gestured towards the sweeping view. As you can see, the Eiffel Tower is practically in your living room. It's breathtaking, I admitted, still slightly dazed by the whirlwind of the past few days. From being unceremoniously ousted from my own home to now, potentially owning this piece of Persian paradise, it felt surreal. The previous owner had impeccable taste, Madame Dubois continued, leading me through the grand salon. The furnishings are all included, Of course. I ran a hand over a plush velvet sofa, imagining myself curled up here with a book, the city lights twinkling outside. The kitchen, Madame Dubois announced, ushering me into a sleek, modern space, is a chef's dream. Fully equipped with top-of-the-line appliances, it's certainly impressive, I murmured, though my mind was still reeling. I'd never envisioned myself living in such luxury. My life had always been about providing for others, for Marcus and his family. And this, Madame Dubois said, opening a set of French doors, is your private balcony. I stepped out onto the wrought iron balcony, a gentle breeze rustling my hair. The Seine shimmered below, reflecting the afternoon sunlight. Across the river, the Louvre stood majestic against the clear blue sky. I could get used to this, I whispered to myself, a small smile playing on my lips. The paperwork is all in order, Madame Dubois said, joining me on the balcony. Just a few signatures, and this apartment is yours. It's a big decision, I said, more to myself than to her. But deep down, I knew I'd already made up my mind. This wasn't just an apartment. It was a symbol of my newfound freedom, my independence, a symbol that I wouldn't be defined by the way my own son and his wife had treated me. I'll take it, I said, turning to Madame Dubois, my voice firm. She beamed. Excellent choice, madam. You won't regret it. As I signed the final document, a sense of quiet satisfaction settled over me. $3 million. It had been a secret for so long, a safety net I'd hoped never to need. My Aunt Mathilde, a woman I barely knew, had bequeathed me this inheritance, a fortune I'd tucked away, unsure what to do with it. Now, it was my lifeline. It was giving me a new life, a life I could design for myself, far away from the hurt and betrayal I'd experienced. Would you like to celebrate with a glass of champagne? Madame Dubois asked, popping the cork on a chilled bottle. I think that's an order, I replied, raising my glass towards the Eiffel Tower, sparkling in the distance. The champagne bubbles danced on my tongue, a taste of the sweet life that lay ahead. This apartment, this city, it was all mine, and as I looked out at the breathtaking panorama of Paris, I couldn't help but think of Jennifer and Marcus. They thought they were pushing me out, discarding me. They had no idea what I was capable of, what I had in store. They thought they knew me. They had no idea. The thought sent another ripple of satisfaction through me. I finished my champagne, the setting sun painting the Persian sky in hues of orange and pink. I have some errands to run, I told Madame Dubois. I'll be back tomorrow to settle in properly. She handed me the keys, a heavy, ornate set that felt substantial in my hand. Welcome home, Madame Dubois, she said with a wink. I smiled. It wasn't home yet, but it would be, and it would be glorious. As I stepped out of the building and onto the bustling Persian street, I pulled out my phone. I had a picture to take, a picture of the view from my balcony, with the Eiffel Tower shimmering in the twilight. A picture I couldn't wait to share. Sunlight streamed through the Persian windows, gilding the cream-colored walls of my new apartment. I pinched myself, still barely believing this was real. After 30 years of pouring my heart and soul into Marcus's family, after being told I was cramping their style and needed to downsize, I was finally free. And not just free, but living a life I never thought possible. I took one last admiring glance around the spacious living room, at the antique furniture I'd carefully chosen, the original artwork adorning the walls. This wasn't just an apartment. It was a sanctuary, a symbol of my hard-won independence. I picked up my phone, a mischievous glint in my eye. Time to share my good fortune. Just settling in, I typed to Marcus, attaching a photo of the Eiffel Tower shimmering through my living room window. Thought you might appreciate the view. I set the phone down, a slow smile spreading across my face. The reply came almost instantly. Mom, what is this? Where are you, Paris? I typed back simply. Remember how you said I needed to downsize? I took your advice. I attached another photo. This one of the apartment's grand entrance, the concierge desk visible in the background. The next message was a flurry of question marks. Then Paris. How? You can't afford Paris. Oh, can't I? I replied, letting a hint of steel creep into my tone. Seems I can afford quite a bit these days. I took a photo of the welcome basket the building management had left, overflowing with gourmet cheeses, fruits, and a bottle of champagne. Enjoying some of the local delicacies, I captioned it. The phone rang. Mom, answer me. What is going on? Marcus's voice was tight with confusion. Just enjoying my new apartment. Dear, I said calmly, strolling over to the balcony and breathing in the crisp Persian air. It has a stunning view. Apartment. What apartment? Mom, you're scaring me. Where did you get the money for an apartment in Paris? Remember Aunt Clara? I asked casually, watching a street artist sketch a portrait below. A pause. Aunt Clara, she passed away years ago. Yes, she did. I agreed, a touch of amusement in my voice. And she left me a rather generous inheritance. $3 million, to be exact. I let that sink in, listening to his stunned silence. Apparently, she always admired my quiet strength and felt I deserved to be taken care of. $3 million, he stammered. You never said anything. You never asked. I pointed out, settling into a comfortable wicker chair on the balcony. Besides, you and Jennifer were so preoccupied with your own lives, your own plans, I didn't want to interrupt. A beat of silence hung in the air. In fact, I continued, my voice softening slightly. I believe Jennifer was the one who suggested I find a smaller, more manageable place to live. Mom, he began, but I cut him off gently. It's quite all right, dear. Everything worked out for the best, wouldn't you say? I gestured round at the breathtaking panorama of the city spread out before me. This is where I belong now. It's peaceful, beautiful, and nobody tells me I'm cramping their style. We didn't mean he started. His voice laced with something that sounded suspiciously like regret. I understand, dear, I said, though I truly didn't. You wanted your privacy, and now you have it. I glanced at a sleek, modern kitchen gleaming in the sunlight through the open French doors. In fact, I'm just about to prepare dinner in my brand new kitchen. Perhaps some fresh croissants and a little brie. This local market is simply divine. Mom, please let me explain. His voice was pleading now. There's nothing to explain, Marcus, I said, my voice firm. I'm happy here, truly. And in that moment, gazing out at the twinkling lights of the Eiffel Tower as dusk began to settle over the city, I realized that it was the truth. This wasn't just revenge. It was a new beginning. Can I come visit? He asked hesitantly. I paused, a small smile playing on my lips. We'll see, dear, I said, letting the words hang in the air. We'll see. Then I ended the call, the echoes of his confusion and regret a sweet melody in my ears. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the cool evening breeze and the taste of freedom. The city lights glittered below, a million tiny promises of a future I was finally free to embrace. The scent of freshly baked bread wafted up from a nearby bakery, a comforting aroma that had nothing to do with 30 years of obligation and everything to do with the simple joy of living life on my own terms. I closed my eyes, a sigh of contentment escaping my lips. Paris! It was a beautiful start. The aroma of Sunday morning pancakes hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the bitter taste in my mouth. I still can't believe you did this to us, Mom, Marcus said, picking at his breakfast. Jennifer, ever the picture of composure, simply sipped her coffee. It's for the best, she added, her voice cool as always. We need our privacy, and this will give you a chance to find your own space. I nodded, a tight smile plastered on my face. Of course, dear, I replied, my voice trembling slightly. It's just a bit sudden. The twins, bless their hearts, looked up from their plates, their young faces etched with concern. Where are you going to go, Grandma? Sarah asked. Her brow furrowed. Tom, her twin, echoed her sentiment. Will you still come to our soccer games? He piped up. I reached out and squeezed their hands. Of course, my loves, I reassured them. Grandma will always be there for you. I glanced at Marcus and Jennifer, a quiet resolve hardening within me. They seemed so certain they had won, so confident in their little power play. They had no idea. So, have you found a place yet? Jennifer asked, her tone laced with a hint of what was it? Impatience? Or was it anticipation? Something small and manageable. I imagine. She continued, her eyes flitting around the kitchen, as if already cataloging what would be hers once I was gone. Oh, I'm sure I'll find something suitable, I replied vaguely, forcing a light laugh. There are so many charming little studios around. I casually picked up my phone, pretending to check a message. Speaking of which, I should probably make a few calls. I excused myself and went out onto the back porch. The crisp autumn air welcomed change from the stifling atmosphere inside. Taking a deep breath, I opened my photo gallery and selected a particular image. It was a picture I had taken just yesterday, standing on the balcony of my new apartment, the Eiffel Tower shimmering in the distance. My apartment in Paris, purchased outright, thanks to a little inheritance from my Aunt Millie that Marcus and Jennifer knew absolutely nothing about. $3 million. Enough to buy a little piece of Persian paradise, and enough to ensure that I would never have to rely on them again. I attached the photo to a quick message. Found my small and manageable space. Thought you might appreciate the view. I hit send and waited. Less than a minute later, my phone buzzed with a reply from Marcus. Mom, is this Paris? He sounded utterly bewildered. I smiled, a genuine smile this time. Indeed it is. Dear, I typed back. Just a little pie guitar. Nothing too extravagant. Another buzz. This time it was Jennifer. What how? Her message was fragmented, incomplete. I could practically feel her confusion radiating through the phone. I didn't reply. I simply slipped the phone back into my pocket and returned to the kitchen, a sense of quiet triumph settling over me. The twins were still at the table, finishing their pancakes. Marcus and Jennifer sat frozen, staring blankly at their phones. "Everything all right?" I asked innocently. Marcus looked up, his face a mask of disbelief. "Mom, that apartment, how did you?" he stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. Jennifer remained silent, her jaw clenched tight. I simply smiled and patted Sarah's head. "Grandma has a few secrets, my dear," I whispered, winking at her. "A few very good secrets." The look on Jennifer's face was priceless. It was a mixture of shock, envy, and a dawning realization that they had drastically underestimated me. They had thought they could cast me aside, reduce me to a burden. They thought they knew everything about my finances, about my options. They were wrong, so very wrong. And now, as I looked at their stunned faces, I knew that they finally understood. I was no longer the dependent mother they thought they could control. I was independent. I was secure. And I was finally free. "Now," I said, turning to the twins with a bright smile, "who's ready for some shopping? Grandma knows just the place to get the best macarons in Paris." And with that, I left them to stew in their bewilderment, the taste of sweet revenge far more satisfying than any Sunday morning pancake.